In a quiet street in Providence, Rhode Island, a woman ties her shoes the same way every morning. Right before left, always double knotted, not because she has to, but because it's the one thing in her day that stays the same. That one tiny act holds her together when nothing else does. What if the biggest changes in our lives aren't born from massive effort, but from small, sacred repetitions? Today, I'm going to show you 5 simple habits that might seem invisible on the surface, but they carry the power to completely rewrite the way you move through the world. I used to believe that the only way to change your life was to do something radical. Quit your job, move across the country, start over, reinvent yourself from the ground up. That belief stayed with me for years, hovering in the background like a billboard I couldn't look away from. But here's the truth I discovered somewhere between a grocery store parking lot in Omaha and a slow Sunday morning in Durham. Most lives don't change in a single decision. They change in the spaces in between, the tiny choices, the quiet rituals, the things so small no one else would notice. That's what this video is. It's not a challenge or a prescription. It's an invitation to come back to yourself, to build a rhythm you don't have to escape from. These 5 habits are deceptively simple, which is exactly what makes them powerful. You don't need to clear your calendar, change your career, or wake up at 5 a.m. to reclaim your life. You just need to choose again and again and again until these choices become who you are. Each of the 5 habits I'm going to share with you today has lived in the real world. They've been used by real people. People who work long shifts in Chicago, raise children in Jacksonville, sit in traffic in Los Angeles. People like you and me, tired, hopeful, overwhelmed, and brave. These aren't hacks, they're handrails. They don't demand more from you. They simply return what was always yours: your attention, your breath, yourself. If something in this already resonates, like the video and subscribe. We're walking this together. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Columbus, Ohio. I was sitting in the parking lot of a pharmacy, engine off, keys in my lap, staring at the cracked screen of my phone without really seeing it. I had just finished a work call that left me feeling like I was floating outside my body, smiling, nodding, agreeing, while something deeper inside me went quiet. Not the dramatic kind of quiet, the dangerous kind. The kind that creeps in when you've ignored yourself for too long. I wasn't in crisis. That's what made it harder to notice. My life looked fine from the outside. Bills were paid, emails were answered, I remembered birthdays, but I couldn't remember the last time I felt present. The last time I finished brushing my teeth without already thinking about tomorrow's meeting. The last time I sat down to eat and didn't scroll through something, anything to fill the silence. It wasn't one big thing that was missing. It was me. And then, on a whim, I did something small. I untied my shoes, then tied them again, slowly, right before left, just like I used to do in high school track. It wasn't about the laces, it was about the moment. That act, so automatic and ordinary, somehow reminded me I still lived in this body, that I could still choose to show up in it. That moment didn't fix everything, but it interrupted the drift. It gave me a thread to hold on to, and 5 small habits grew from that single knot. Technique 1, the laces ritual. It started in a library parking lot in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was early for a meeting, something rare for me, and instead of rushing inside, I just sat in the car, watching people walk past. One of them caught my eye, a teenager with a backpack that was way too heavy for his frame, kneeling on the curb to retie his shoelace. But it wasn't the action that stood out, it was the care. He looped slowly, methodically, double knotted, like it mattered, like it wasn't just a task, but a ritual. That image stayed with me. That night, when I got home, I did something I hadn't done with intention in years. I sat at the edge of my bed and tied my shoes. Right before left, double knot. No music, no distractions. Just the laces, my breath, and the quiet reminder that I was alive and choosing to begin the day again. That's how the laces ritual was born. It's simple, intentional, personal. It's the kind of act you do without fanfare but full of meaning. Because in a world that asks us to always be somewhere else, mentally, emotionally, digitally, this is one moment that brings you here. Now, no matter what city I'm in, whether I'm in Denver for work or visiting my sister in Raleigh, I sit, breathe, and tie my shoes like a ceremony. It grounds me. It slows me down. It tells my nervous system, you're here. You're safe. You're starting from steadiness, not stress. The beauty of the laces ritual isn't in the act, it's in the message that your day begins with presence, with choice, with you. Technique 2, the silent start. I was staying in a small guest house outside of Flagstaff, Arizona, one of those places where the morning light arrives slowly and the wind feels like it has something to say. I woke up before my alarm that day, which never happened, and instinctively reached for my phone, but there was no signal, no Wi-Fi, no digital world waiting to swallow me, just silence. I sat there, unsure of what to do with it. No music, no headlines, just breathe. And after a few moments, I realized I felt calm, not empty, not unproductive, just still. That was the moment I met the silent start. It wasn't something I planned. It wasn't a technique I learned. It was a return to something I'd forgotten how to hold. My own beginning, because the way most of us start our day isn't with intention. It's with intrusion, a flood of messages, alerts, voices, pressure. We wake up and immediately leave ourselves behind. But the silent start is a reclaiming. It's the decision to begin with you, before the emails, before the calendar, before anyone else gets a piece of your mind, your energy, your attention. Just 2 minutes, maybe 5. No talking, no typing, no reacting. Just breath, stillness, maybe a glance out the window or a sip of coffee that you actually taste. Now, whether I'm waking up in my apartment in Pittsburgh or crashing on a friend's couch in Austin, I give myself those few moments. And on the mornings I forget, I feel it. My day starts on someone else's terms. But when I remember, everything softens. My body feels less like a machine and more like a place I'm allowed to be. The silent start doesn't need perfect conditions. It just needs permission. Yours. Technique 3, the pocket pause. It was a humid afternoon in Tallahassee, Florida, and I was standing in line at a DMV that hadn't moved in 20 minutes. People were sighing, shifting, scrolling. I reached for my phone, ready to do the same, when I noticed something tucked in the pocket of my jacket, a tiny folded paper I'd forgotten about. I unfolded it, just 5 words written in my own handwriting. "You don't need to rush," I exhaled without even realizing I'd been holding my breath. That small sentence, crumpled and quiet, gave me more peace than any app ever had. That's when I began practicing the pocket pause. It's simple. You take a scrap of paper, an index card, a sticky note, a napkin, and write something you know you'll need to hear. Not what you should hear, but what you know you'll forget in the chaos. Then you fold it and carry it with you. In your pocket, your wallet, your bag. Somewhere close, somewhere invisible to others, but grounding to you. I've written things like "You've already survived worse." This isn't personal. Come back to your breath. Each one has found me at a moment when I needed it more than I knew. And it's not just about the words. It's about what they interrupt. The panic spiral, the self-doubt, the urge to disappear into distraction. Now, wherever I go, from crowded grocery aisles in Chicago to airport terminals in Phoenix, I carry one, and when my chest tightens or my thoughts race, I reach for it. I pause. I remember that I am not alone in this moment. I'm connected to something steadier, to myself. The pocket pause is your anchor in your own handwriting, a lifeline disguised as a whisper, and some days, that's all we really need. What would your pocket pause say today? Share your 5-word note in the comments. I'd love to see what message your heart is holding on to right now. Technique 4, the gratitude glance. It was a chilly morning in Minneapolis, and I was walking past a bakery I used to visit with someone I no longer speak to. The memories came fast, sweet and sharp, and for a moment I felt that old ache in my chest. But then something unexpected happened. I looked up, caught the way the light was hitting the window, and whispered, "Thank you, not for the loss, not for the pain, but for the moment itself. For the fact that I could feel it, see it, be in it." That was the beginning of what I now call the gratitude glance. It's not a journal, it's not a list. It's a practice of catching gratitude as it moves, quick and fleeting through ordinary life. It might be the way your coffee smells when you didn't expect it to bring comfort. It might be how someone holds the elevator for you, or how the wind moves the leaves just right as you walk to your car. It's not about being relentlessly positive. It's about being available to the good that's already happening. And now, whenever I feel that familiar heaviness creeping in, whether I'm walking through the grocery store in Portland or sitting in traffic on I-75, I gently ask myself, what can I thank this moment for? Not because I have to, but because I can. It's not always profound. Sometimes it's "this seat is warm, this pen writes smoothly, this song reminds me I'm not alone." But that one small shift turns the moment from passive to sacred. It reminds me that life is still speaking to me, even when it feels quiet. The gratitude glance is how I say I'm still here and I'm still noticing. And that noticing, that's the beginning of belonging. Technique 5, the 8 o'clock whisper. It was a quiet night in Sacramento. I had just finished a long day, one of those days where everything feels half done, where your to-do list seems to whisper not enough, no matter how hard you tried. I was brushing my teeth, scrolling with one hand when I saw the time on my phone, 8 p.m., and something inside me said, put it down. So I did. I turned off the screen, sat on the edge of the bed, and whispered one sentence. You did your best today. That was it. Nothing grand, nothing planned, just a sentence offered like a hand on my own shoulder. And for the first time in weeks, I felt forgiven, not by anyone else, by myself. That's where the 8 o'clock whisper came from. A moment to end the striving, to transition not just into night, but into gentleness. Because so often we don't stop working. We just pass out from exhaustion. We carry the day into our sleep like a weight we forgot to put down. Now every evening when the clock hits 8 o'clock, whether I'm in my apartment in Philadelphia or staying with friends in Missoula, I pause. I don't always say the same thing. Sometimes it's you're safe now. Sometimes it's you mattered today. Sometimes it's rest is allowed, but always I whisper it aloud because my body needs to hear it. My mind needs to hear it. I need to hear it. The 8 o'clock whisper isn't about being perfect. It's about being kind. It's the daily closing of a door, the soft exhale that says, I am more than what I did today. And that softness over time reshapes how you see yourself, not as someone trying to earn rest, but as someone already worthy of it. There was a season of my life when I measured my worth entirely by what I produced. If I had a productive day, I was proud. If I didn't, I felt like I was wasting space. I lived in a small apartment in Kansas City then, 3rd floor, just above a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon at sunrise. From the outside, everything looked fine. I had a job with a title people respected, a relationship that looked stable, and friends who checked in regularly. But inside, I was unraveling in slow motion, quietly, invisibly. I woke up every day with a tightness in my chest that I couldn't name. I filled every hour with tasks, lists, audio, movement, and when the noise faded, even for a second, I'd panic because in the silence, the real question surfaced. Who am I without all the doing? One evening, after a long day of meetings and pretending, I sat down on the bathroom floor. I hadn't even turned the lights on. I was just there, frozen, exhausted, not from life's chaos, but from pretending I was fine. And I remember this thought so clearly, it still makes my throat tighten when I say it out loud. I don't know how to be with myself anymore. That was the night something cracked, not in a dramatic world-ending way, but in a way that felt like a whisper getting through the wall of noise. I didn't move for a long time, and when I finally did, it wasn't to write a plan or make a list. It was to do something I hadn't done in months. I looked in the mirror, and I didn't look away. I didn't see someone lazy or weak. I saw someone tired, someone trying, someone holding it together with invisible thread, and I cried, not out of shame, but out of recognition. That moment in the dark was the first time I let myself be human again. From that night forward, I didn't make huge changes. I wasn't ready for huge changes. I was barely ready for anything. But I started doing small things, quiet things. I began tying my shoes more slowly, like it mattered. I gave myself 2 minutes before picking up my phone in the morning. I carried tiny notes in my pocket with words like, "You're okay," and "It's enough." I whispered thank you when I noticed beauty, and I started saying something kind to myself at night, even when I didn't believe it. Those habits didn't save me overnight, but they made staying with myself possible again. They gave me something to come back to. They reminded me that healing doesn't happen in loud declarations. It happens in the soft, repetitive act of remembering who you are underneath the noise. And I say this now, not as someone who's figured it all out, but as someone who's still choosing every day to return, to begin, to forgive, to breathe before the scroll, to thank the moment even when it aches, to stay human in a world that constantly asks us to be machines. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you've been performing so long, you've forgotten what it's like to just be. If that's you, I want you to know you are not alone, and you don't need to wait for rock bottom or some grand revelation. You just need a thread, a starting point, a soft practice that brings you home. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no trumpet sound, no sunrise montage, no magic moment where the sky opens and you suddenly feel brand new. That's the myth, isn't it? That transformation is some big, sweeping gesture, that we wake up one day as someone else. But the truth is quieter, slower, more honest. Real Real change comes like a tide, not crashing, but creeping, small waves, gentle returns. It started the morning I didn't reach for my phone right away, just sat there, legs still under the covers, hand on my chest, eyes on the ceiling fan. It felt silly, like nothing, but it was something. Because I had made space for myself. I had remembered that I was a person, not a machine, not a task list, a person. And I began to stack those moments, one on top of the other, shoelaces tied with breath, silence before sound, a note in my pocket that said, "You matter even when no one sees it," gratitude whispered in passing, a soft sentence to close the day. And here's what changed. Not just the way I moved, but the way I existed. My shoulders stopped living near my ears. My jaw unclenched. I looked people in the eyes again. I walked into rooms not wondering what I needed to prove, but curious about what I could experience. I wasn't always peaceful, but I was present. And presence, I learned, is the root of peace. The version of me that once sprinted through the day just to collapse into sleep, she began to dissolve. Slowly, with kindness. In her place, someone else emerged, not louder or more impressive, but truer. Someone who didn't always need to have an answer. Someone who could sit with the question. Someone who could make a mistake and not spiral. Someone who could say, "I'm tired," and not feel weak for it. And now, if you're here, I want you to imagine this version of you, not a better version, a realer one who wakes up and gives yourself the first 5 minutes of the day, not to conquer anything, but to simply arrive, one who ties your shoes like a ceremony, one who pauses before you let a screen tell you who you are, one who carries a message in your pocket, not for the world to see, but for your heart to hold, one who notices beauty, not all the time, but sometimes, and says thank you out loud, one who ends the day not with judgment, but with gentleness. That version of you isn't far away. They're not waiting on a life change or a new job or someone's approval. They are already inside you, underneath the rush, beneath the noise, behind the pressure. You've just forgotten the rhythm that brings them to the surface. And that rhythm isn't built with willpower or discipline. It's built with devotion, with softness, with the decision to keep coming home, even when the day was messy, even when you don't feel worthy, because you are. Worthy. Not because of what you do or how much you achieve, but because you are you, and you are here, and you are trying. And trying in a world that tells you to numb out, shut down, and keep performing is the bravest thing you could ever do. So don't look for the mountaintop, look for the laces, look for the breath, look for the doorway, look for the whisper. Start small, start quietly, start with whatever you can carry, and then do it again tomorrow, and again the next day. Not because it's a goal, but because it's a remembering. This is not about changing who you are, it's about coming back to who you've always been. Let's go back to that quiet street in Providence, to the woman tying her shoes, right before left, always double knotted, not because she had to, but because it was the one moment in her day that felt steady. That tiny ritual, invisible to everyone else, was her way of saying, "This day still belongs to me." That wasn't just her story, that's all of us. Every one of us is looking for something small to hold on to, not because we're weak, but because the world is loud and fast. And too often it forgets that we are human. You've now met 5 small habits, 5 ordinary gestures that carry extraordinary weight, tying your laces like it matters, beginning your day with silence instead of urgency, carrying a message in your pocket to meet you when you forget who you are, catching beauty and saying thank you in the middle of a traffic light or a grocery store aisle, whispering something kind to yourself at 8 p.m., even if the day didn't go the way you wanted, especially then. These aren't tactics, they're anchors. They're how we hold steady when the current pulls. They're how we stay human in a culture that keeps asking us to be efficient instead. They're not grand and they're not loud, but neither is love. And that's what this is. Love, disguised as rhythm, as breath, as ritual, as return. Because transformation doesn't always look like a new job, a dramatic move, a big announcement. Sometimes it looks like tying your shoes slowly on a rainy morning in Missouri, or placing your hand on your chest before a meeting in Chicago, or writing "You are already enough" on a sticky note and folding it into your jeans pocket in San Diego. And when those moments repeat, not because you're forcing them, but because you're choosing them, something inside you shifts, softly, quietly, and then one day, without even realizing it, you'll look up and find that you no longer feel like a stranger to your own life. You'll feel like someone who belongs to yourself again, not because everything is perfect, but because something inside you is finally listening and responding and remembering. So tomorrow when your feet touch the floor, I hope you find your ritual. I hope you greet the day with presence, not pressure. I hope you carry a word or a note or a whisper. I hope you find something to thank, even if it's just the way the light lands on your coffee mug. I hope you close your day with softness. And most of all, I hope you remember this. The most powerful transformations don't always roar. Sometimes they sound like shoelaces tightening, or paper unfolding, or a sentence spoken only to yourself. You're here, you're trying, you're enough. If this journey stirred something in you, like subscribe and let's keep walking this rhythm together.